10 Subtle Details That Made Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man So Perfect. Tobey Maguire's iteration of Spider-Man may not be the only live-action version of the Marvel flagship superhero, but he remains a favorite among viewers for many reasons. In the late 90s and early 2000s, superhero films were still finding their footing as a genre, but Marvel adaptations finally saw success in 1998's Blade and 2000's X-Men, paving the way for 2002's Spider-Man. The film had an unprecedented respect for the comic source material, while simultaneously focusing on relative realism and making its version of Peter Parker deeply relatable to the audience. Tobey Maguire played Spider-Man in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy but returned in the Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline via Spider-Man: No Way Home, which featured the three main live-action iterations of the Marvel hero. Maguire's iteration is renowned for perfectly portraying Peter Parker as a socially awkward everyman who constantly struggles to balance his mundane commitments with his responsibility to use his accidentally received superpowers to help others. This depiction remains near and dear to Spider-Man viewers, even with his two successors, Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland, earning the adoration of audiences as well. While there are plenty of obvious reasons why Maguire's iteration remains so popular, the following 10 details are far subtler examples of his excellence in the role. Tobey Maguire improvised his web-shooting dialogue. One of the few source material changes that 2002's Spider-Man made to its version of Peter Parker was the omission of his famous web shooters, though the devices were initially planned to appear in the film. After discovering that he had accidentally received superhuman abilities from the bite of a genetically altered spider, Peter Parker tests his abilities, including his power to shoot webs from his wrists. In one particularly funny moment, Peter struggles to make the power work, flicking his wrist into the air with a variety of gestures and phrases. The dialogue was improvised by Tobey Maguire, giving the film one of its many memorable moments. Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker was a superhero fan before becoming Spider-Man. The phrases that Tobey Maguire ad-libbed reference the two famous DC Comics heroes Superman and Shazam, Captain Marvel. Peter Parker references having comic books in Spider-Man 2, says Shazam again in Spider-Man 3, and paraphrases a Joker quote from 1989's Batman in the canonical Spider-Man 2 video game. These details all indicate that Maguire's Spider-Man has been a fan of superhero fiction well before gaining his superpowers, making his choice to become a superhero all the more satisfying. While his double life is a major source of stress, he is also likely living a childhood fantasy by gaining superpowers and creating a costumed persona for himself. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man is a scientific genius. Spider-Man is a scientific genius in the comics, though this trait is downplayed in the Raimi trilogy. Rather than build high-tech web shooters and devices tailored to defeating his supervillains, Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker is depicted as someone intelligent enough to understand the work of Norman Osborn and Otto Octavius, whose respective scientific minds are on par with the likes of Tony Stark. The true genius of Maguire's Spider-Man is finally revealed in No Way Home, however, with Peter Parker using high school chemistry equipment to make a successful antidote to the Goblin formula, something that even Tom Holland's Spider-Man and Tony Stark's Fabricator could not manage. The Osborn deaths continued to haunt Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. No Way Home also establishes that Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man had been thinking about an anti-serum for the Goblin formula sometime after the events of Spider-Man 3. While this is an obvious consequence of at least two Goblin supervillains terrorizing New York in Spider-Man's superhero career, it also indicates that the deaths of Norman and Harry Osborn still weigh heavily on him. While he could not save either Osborn in his timeline, he gained a second chance to save the alternate version of Norman he encountered in the MCU. Spider-Man's lunch tray scene was done without CGI. In 2002's Spider-Man, Peter Parker first used his spider sense and superhuman reflexes to catch Mary Jane Watson after she slips. He also catches her tray of food without anything spilling in a moment made entirely with practical effects. In an age when superhero films use CGI for even the most mundane of scenes, it is impressive that one of the first successful superhero films had Tobey Maguire actually catch each item on the lunch tray, even if it took over 100 takes to get it right. No Way Home doesn't over-explain Maguire's Peter Parker. To the delight of longtime Spider-Man viewers, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield return in No Way Home, with the two actors having a degree of input on the characterizations of their respective Spider-Man variants. Andrew Garfield wished to explain the tragic trajectory of his Spider-Man following the events of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, but Tobey Maguire took the opposite approach with his version. Maguire wished to keep the details of his Spider-Man's post-Spider-Man 3 escapades to a minimum, but he made sure to address the most important one, his relationship with Kirsten Dunst's Mary Jane Watson. While his double life keeps things complicated, the two are still together. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man is the strongest version. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man performs an incredible feat of superhuman strength when stopping a train in Spider-Man 2, but Tom Holland's iteration has a more impressive feat in Spider-Man: Homecoming, holding two halves of a ferry together. When Holland's iteration prepares to kill the Green Goblin in No Way Home, however, Maguire's Spider-Man proves himself to be the stronger of the two. With little effort, Tobey Maguire's iteration holds Holland's Spider-Man back from delivering a killing blow to the Goblin. No Way Home makes Tobey Maguire protect Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. One of the most crowd-pleasing parts of No Way Home is the interactions between all three iterations of Spider-Man. Notably, Andrew Garfield's iteration often self-deprecates, but Maguire's version is always quick to try to cheer him up. Maguire's Spider-Man gives him hope that he will find love again after Gwen, compliments his counterpart's preferred locale for solitude, and notably calls him amazing. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man prevents Tom Holland from repeating his mistakes. The older and more experienced Tobey Maguire iteration of Spider-Man also becomes a mentor of sorts to Tom Holland's version. This is most evident when Holland's Spider-Man is reluctant to attempt to cure the Green Goblin following his aunt's murder. In one subtle background moment, Maguire's Spider-Man takes the Goblin cure equipment out of reach of Holland's iteration to ensure that he can successfully make an anti-serum. He then stresses to Holland's iteration that they must cure all of the villains because it is what we do. In the film's climax, it is Maguire's version of Spider-Man who stops Holland's iteration from murdering the Green Goblin, a scene that is more potent because of these smaller previous moments. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man quips when it counts. One of the few criticisms of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man is that he lacks the constant stream of quips that his comic counterpart and successors are known for. That said, the classic comic iteration of Spider-Man tended to halt his flow of witticisms when a situation became particularly serious. The times that Maguire's version quips are usually in relatively low-stakes fight scenes. Moreover, the canonical Raimi Spider-Man video games, which feature Tobey Maguire as the voice of Spider-Man, have the web-slinger constantly doling out
Row 18, plot 20.